That's when I began developing something I now refer to as my three-step morning system. Not a rigid checklist, not a performance, but a grounded rhythm of being that changes the way I meet the day. It's simple yet profound. Awaken the body, nurture the mind, and set the course. These are not mere tasks. They are acts of self-respect, micro investments in the version of yourself you want to become. The first step, awakening the body, may seem obvious, but it's often the most neglected. Your body is the vessel through which you experience every challenge and joy that unfolds during the day. If you don't tend to it at the start, you move like someone dragging a heavy shadow, sluggish, irritable, disoriented. Yet this doesn't mean you need to leap into intense workouts or mimic elite athletes. The purpose isn't exertion, it's activation. A few stretches in the golden silence, a mindful walk to the window, a series of deep, steady breaths while feeling the earth beneath your feet. These small actions reintroduce your physical self to the world with reverence rather than urgency. They don't just wake your body, they signal to your mind that you're here, awake, and ready to lead. The second step is nurturing the mind, and this is where the real alchemy begins. We often underestimate how deeply our morning mental diet shapes the texture of the day. What you expose your consciousness to in those early moments, before the world barges in, has a ripple effect on your thoughts, your emotions, even your confidence. Think of your mind as soil, freshly turned, vulnerable to whatever seeds are planted. If the first thing you consume is noisy, negative, chaotic, whether it's news headlines, messages, or meaningless entertainment, you're not just absorbing information, you're letting that energy script your inner voice. But when you choose wisely, when you feed your mind with a passage from a book that reminds you of what matters, or you reflect in a journal, or even pause to write a simple, truthful sentence, you are planting something far deeper than information. You're planting intention. You're grounding yourself in clarity before the storm of stimuli arrives. For me, it sometimes looks like a few scribbled thoughts. What's the one thing I must not lose sight of today? Or what am I avoiding that I need to face? It doesn't need to be poetic. It just needs to be honest. And I've found time and again that when I show up sincerely, the insights appear, not from force, but from space. The final step is setting the course for the day. And this isn't about making a long to-do list or overwhelming yourself with obligations. It's about alignment, clarity, intention. I choose 3 priorities, just 3. Not the tasks that seem most urgent, but the ones that, if completed, would bring me closer to the person I want to be. This is not a productivity hack. It's a declaration, a reclaiming of direction. When you start the day with just 3 meaningful intentions, clear, purposeful, emotionally resonant, you no longer feel like a passenger in your own life. You feel like the pilot, and that's what this ritual is ultimately about. Not control in the rigid sense, but conscious authorship of your own experience. These 3 steps, awaken the body, nurture the mind, and set the course, take less time than you think. 30 minutes, maybe 45, some days just 20. And yet they build something that compounds with each passing morning. Readiness, not just to do more, but to live more truthfully. These steps do not guarantee a perfect day. They do something better. They offer you the grounding to face whatever comes without losing yourself in the chaos. They help you move through life with alignment rather than reaction. They remind you that even if the world outside is loud, you can still be the one who listens deeply within. I've been asked many times how I manage to stay consistent with early rising. And the truth is, it has nothing to do with discipline in the traditional sense. It's not about manipulating the clock or tricking myself into bed earlier. It's about shifting the mindset. Because if you wake early but carry the same chaotic internal programming, nothing changes. You'll still delay, still drift, still hand over your power. But when you change your internal script, when you rise not because you have to, but because you're drawn by something greater, you don't need an alarm clock. You're pulled by purpose. A true early riser doesn't just get up early. They rise with meaning. They don't chase motivation. They create it by acting on what they've chosen to believe in, even before they feel like it. And that's the difference between living a reactive life and an intentional one. I used to fall into the same traps that so many people do. I waited for motivation. I waited to feel like it. There are moments I will never forget, not because they were extraordinary, but because they were quiet, peaceful. I remember stepping outside one morning before sunrise. The mist still clung to the leaves. The world hadn't woken yet. No car horns, no notifications, no noise. Just stillness. Just me and the breath of the earth. That, I believe, is the hidden magic of morning, a gift reserved for those willing to rise before the rush. I used to think mornings weren't that important, that they didn't really impact how the day would unfold. But then I began noticing a pattern. The days I felt centered, composed, and focused were the ones where the morning began with stillness, not stress. The difference wasn't dramatic on the surface, but it was seismic within. Waking up early doesn't just give you time, it gives you mental space. It gives you clarity. In those early hours, you're not fighting distractions or reacting to demands. You control the tempo. You can sit in silence, write in peace, move without interruption. And in that solitude, you begin to reconnect with a rhythm that often gets lost throughout the day. A rhythm that doesn't shout but hums beneath everything. A quiet compass waiting to guide you. One morning, I did nothing but sit on my balcony. No phone, no thoughts of work, just the wind brushing against me. In that moment of stillness, an idea I had been searching for months suddenly came with ease. Not because I tried harder, but because I finally got quiet enough to hear it. And that's the secret. When the noise dies down, the real answers rise up. Whether it's clarity, creativity, or peace. Morning gives it to you not by force, but by presence. This is also the only time when no one else needs you. There are no unread messages, no roles to play, no mask to wear. You're not a parent, not an employee, not a boss. You're just you. And that freedom, rare, weightless, is what your mind and soul crave more than you realize. I used to ask the people I admired, those who always seemed to be composed and efficient, how they did it, how they maintained focus. Almost all of them gave the same answer. Their mornings. They didn't just rise early to be productive. They did it to anchor their minds before the world could uproot them. Imagine two different starts to a day. One person jolts awake, rushes to dress, scrolls their phone mid-brush, gulps breakfast while checking emails. The other wakes 45 minutes earlier, opens the curtains, sips water slowly, journals for a few minutes, and prepares calmly. It's clear who is leading and who is being led. You can feel it too, can't you? That deep longing for a day that doesn't start with panic, but with peace. The clarity you seek doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand 2 hours of routines. Just one choice, to begin with presence. Maybe it's 10 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of silence, or simply breathing with intention. That alone redefines your day. Morning is the blank canvas. Nothing has yet been written. You have the brush, no one else. I'm not telling you this to convert you into an early riser. I'm sharing it because I've seen and felt the undeniable shift in my own life. I've seen how the silence of dawn becomes the birthplace of clarity. I've seen how one calm morning leads to one empowered day, and how those days stack into something real, something meaningful. You don't need to do it all. Just start with one small act. Don't pick up your phone. Step out onto your balcony, breathe, be quiet, listen. When you give your body and mind that space, they know what to do. They've always known. And slowly, one breath at a time, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The life you've always wanted isn't some distant dream. It begins the moment you choose to awaken, fully, deeply, while the world is still asleep. There was a time when I believed that waking up early, by itself, was the answer. Like so many others, I set my alarm for 5 a.m., avoided my phone, even forced myself out of bed with rigid determination. But what followed wasn't peace, wasn't clarity. It was simply another void. I would sit there, half awake, scrolling through irrelevant articles or mindlessly watching the clock tick. And I'd ask myself, I woke up early, so why do I still feel behind? Why am I not inspired? Why do I feel like I've done something right but gotten nothing in return? That's when it struck me. Waking up early isn't enough. The time you gain means nothing if you don't know how to use it. That sacred hour before the world intrudes is a gift, but only if you meet it with purpose. Early rising must be followed by early intention. If you wake early only to fill the silence with noise, you're not moving forward. You're just starting earlier in the same old loop. To truly elevate your mornings, you need more than just time. You need a system, a ritual, a way of guiding that moment into something that lifts your life rather than just stretching your schedule. Every morning I stand at a silent crossroads, a decision that appears simple, almost inconsequential, and yet it holds immense power to shape everything that follows. I believe you stand at that same crossroads too. The moment the alarm rings or the light filters through the curtain, we are given a choice to continue sleeping with our dreams or rise and start chasing them. It may seem like a gentle fork in the road, but this is where willpower and habit clash in a quiet, deeply personal battle. It's in that brief hesitation that we define the day ahead, and in many ways ourselves. I used to believe that 5 more minutes was harmless, a tiny indulgence, but those 5 became 10, then 20, and suddenly I found myself scrambling. Not just in terms of time, but mentally, emotionally, energetically. I didn't just lose minutes, I lost momentum. I started the day not leading, but chasing time, chasing clarity, chasing a sense of control that had already slipped through my fingers. This isn't just about waking up early. That's a surface-level detail. The deeper truth is this. When we repeatedly delay our very first action of the day, we're not just resisting physical effort. We're sending ourselves a message, quietly but repeatedly, that comfort is more important than growth, that avoidance is acceptable, that purpose can wait. We don't say it out loud, but the message is clear. I'll start, just not now. And that not now begins to multiply, bleeding into every part of life until it quietly becomes maybe never. I'm not trying to make the act of leaving bed heroic. I understand how warm it feels, how soft the excuses are. I'll try harder tomorrow. Today's different. I used to say all of that too. I told myself I wasn't a morning person, that I was just wired differently, that I did my best work at night. But that wasn't true. The issue wasn't genetics or chronotypes. It was commitment. It wasn't my biology that needed changing. It was my mindset. No one is born a morning person. There's no secret gene that grants magical willpower at dawn. The only difference between someone who rises early and someone who doesn't is this. One understands the cost of delay, and the other underestimates it. Early risers don't wake up because it's easy. They wake up because they understand that if they don't claim those first hours, the world will claim them. They know that without intention, mornings will slip away, and with them, the tone of the entire day. They understand that control isn't seized later. It begins in the first breath of the day. And they don't let comfort dictate action. They let clarity lead. There is something sacred about the early morning hours. The world hasn't stirred yet. No pings or dings, no conversations, no obligations pulling you away from yourself. It's a rare, untouched space, a soft silence that allows you to hear the voice within. When I started waking earlier, not out of pressure but out of respect for my time, I found that I didn't just gain extra hours. I gained authority over my life. I stopped feeling like I was constantly putting out fires. I started stepping into each day with calm, with purpose. I could move with intention. I could write down what truly mattered. I could breathe into my body and listen to what it needed. I could pause, stretch, or simply stand by the window in the stillness. I didn't rush into life. I entered it. Contrast that to someone who wakes up late, immediately bombarded by their phone, scrambling to catch up, mind already flooded with half-finished thoughts and incoming demands. Are they truly choosing their day, or is the day choosing them? Compare that to someone who wakes gently, plans consciously, and sits quietly for even a few minutes. That person doesn't need to sprint. They're already ahead, not just in time, but in spirit. What I'm sharing with you isn't a rigid rule book or a call to brutal discipline. It's an invitation, an invitation to see the profound potential that lies in those first minutes after you wake. I'm not asking you to do something extreme. You don't need to overhaul your life. Just start small. Wake up a bit earlier. Don't touch your phone. Don't flip on the news. Just sit. Breathe. Write one thing you're grateful for. One thing you want to accomplish. One reason why it matters. That's it. And then, feel what shifts. Try this for 1 week. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you deserve more clarity, more ownership, more intention in your days. Let the early light touch your skin. Listen to the birds before the noise comes in. Tell yourself, today I lead. And if you truly feel that difference, even just once, you'll understand why those who rise early rarely ever go back. Because they've tasted the quiet power of being in charge of their life from the very moment they open their eyes. I waited for the right conditions, the ideal mood, the perfect level of inspiration, the surge of clarity that never seemed to arrive on schedule. And then, when none of it came, I'd quietly justify the delay. I'd say, I'm tired, or tomorrow will be better, or there's no point rushing it. But what I finally learned, after many rounds of self-sabotage disguised as self-care, is that if you live according to emotion alone, your life will drift, sometimes forward, often backward, occasionally spinning in circles. It's not stability, it's randomness. It's giving the wheel to something outside yourself and hoping the road will still lead where you want to go. Everything changed the moment I stopped asking, do I feel like waking up? And started asking, what's worth waking up for? That single shift in question redirected my entire behavior. I no longer saw the alarm as a threat. I saw it as a commitment, a quiet call to meet the version of me I had promised to become. Yes, I was tired. Yes, I had excuses. But no excuse was more important than the life I refused to keep postponing. And that truly is what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. The ones who act even when they don't feel like it are the ones who get somewhere real. Because they're not guided by temporary moods, they're led by a deeper compass. You'll find this truth across every field of excellence. Artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, thinkers, whatever path they're on, they have one thing in common. Their mornings are sacred, not negotiable, not dictated by the outside world. Their mornings are where their foundations are built, in private, in quiet, far before the world demands anything from them. They don't begin the day with reaction. They begin with principle. Steve Jobs once said that every morning he asked himself, if today were the last day of my life, would I be happy with what I'm about to do? Simple, director, yet powerful enough to cut through distraction. That kind of self-questioning is a mirror, a tool for alignment. And that's the essence of a meaningful morning. Not rituals for the sake of them, but rituals that reconnect you to who you really are. Someone once asked me, how do you stay disciplined every morning? And I told them, discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one quiet win at a time. No one sees those moments. No one applauds when you choose to get up instead of hitting snooze. But those moments count more than you think, because every time you rise, you're telling yourself something. You're reinforcing the belief that you are capable of choosing the harder, more purposeful path. You are silently rewriting the story of who you are, not with grand gestures, but with tiny decisions repeated with care. And over time, that repetition becomes character. It becomes identity. The magic of mastering your morning isn't that it makes you superhuman, it's that it makes you fully human, aware, present, deliberate. You don't float through the day hoping it all works out. You move through it with your eyes open and your values intact. You don't react to every email or text like a puppet on a string. You decide what matters and you let the rest wait. You begin to lead your life, not just manage it. And it all starts with those first few minutes, before the world barges in, before the noise rises, when it's just you and the person you've decided to be. There's something I realized late, perhaps too late in the early stages of my self-development journey, and it wasn't found in a book or a video or a single conversation. It came to me through repeated experience, over quiet mornings and chaotic ones, through failures and hesitant restarts. A good morning doesn't just shape a good day, it rewires your entire life, not through a lightning bolt of change or a dramatic overhaul, but through a slow and steady chain of cause and effect, like dominoes falling in quiet succession, creating an outcome far greater than the sum of its parts. One right morning, just one, triggers a shift in your physiology, your mood, your choices, and that ripple travels outward into how you treat others, how you speak to yourself, how you meet challenges, how you end the day. That first moment when you choose not to hit snooze, when you claim your space with awareness instead of rushing into the digital fog, becomes the root of everything else that follows. That's why I began to think of it as the chain reaction effect. One act of awareness, a deep breath, a written intention, a stretch toward the sunlight, triggers another. You get out of bed and move your body just a little, maybe only a few steps, but it stirs your energy. That movement pushes blood through your veins, oxygen into your brain, alertness into your system. That alertness fuels curiosity. You find yourself picking up a pen and writing a few thoughts. Suddenly, your mind clears. You remember what matters. You remember who you are. And with that clarity, you begin the day not reacting to it, but shaping it. You don't sit back, you step forward. You choose your response instead of being governed by impulse. And even if nothing extraordinary happens in the next 24 hours, you end the day with a quiet confidence. I lived right today. I stayed close to the version of myself I'm trying to build. For a long time, I underestimated the value of small things. I believed in sweeping changes. I romanticized the dramatic gesture. I thought I needed to wake up at 4 a.m., journal for 30 minutes, read entire chapters, meditate like a monk, and power through a flawless morning routine to truly transform. And so I tried. I wrote elaborate schedules and set rigid expectations. On day 1, I completed half. On day 2, I pushed through. On day 3, I started slipping. By day 4, I gave up. Not because I lacked motivation, but because I had built a mountain too high to climb daily. And that's when I understood something we often forget in a world obsessed with speed. Deep, lasting change never comes from massive overhaul. It comes from commitment to small, manageable shifts repeated with care. We live in an age addicted to rapid transformation. Everywhere you look, you'll see promises. Change your life in 7 days. 21 days success challenge. One simple hack to become unstoppable. And subconsciously, we begin to believe that if we're not changing fast, we're not changing at all. But the truth is the opposite. Real change is slow. It's often invisible. It grows in the background, where no one is watching, over mornings that feel repetitive and quiet. It takes root in your nervous system, your habits, your inner narratives. And that kind of change, gentle, deliberate, and resilient, is the kind that actually lasts. You don't need to revolutionize your entire life overnight. You just need to begin, truly begin, with one small thing. Wake up 10 minutes earlier. Write down one sentence. Breathe deeply before reaching for your phone. It may feel insignificant, but over time, that choice becomes your foundation. When I started this way, just 15 minutes earlier, just a little space, no pressure, I noticed something unexpected. I stopped feeling scattered. I stopped waking up in a rush, already behind. I didn't need to run to catch up with the day. I was already ahead, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and that gave me something I didn't even know I was craving. Steadiness. And from that steadiness, confidence began to grow. Not loud, chest-thumping confidence, but the quiet, sturdy kind that says, I know who I am, I know where I'm going. And so I added a bit more. 5 minutes of journaling, some gentle stretching, a cup of tea in silence. I didn't add these things out of ambition. I added them because I felt what they were doing to my life. Slowly, organically, I had built a morning that didn't feel like a performance, but like a return to myself. This is what I want to tell you now. Don't underestimate the small. Someone who runs 1 kilometer every day will get farther than someone who plans a marathon and never starts. Someone who reads 2 pages each morning will learn more than someone waiting for the perfect weekend to binge read an entire book. and someone who gives themselves 10 minutes of silence each day to connect with their breath, their thoughts, their body, that person becomes far more grounded than someone who rushes for weeks, hoping someday life will slow down for them. I know you have big dreams, and I believe you're capable of achieving them. But those dreams don't manifest through sporadic bursts of effort. They are built through small, consistent, intentional actions, brick by brick, each morning, each moment, each mindful breath. When you wake up and get out of bed at the time you promised yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes earlier, you're not just gaining time. You're rebuilding trust. You're telling yourself, I keep my word. That may seem small, but it's monumental, because self-trust is the foundation of self-respect. And self-respect is the fuel for self-discipline. And discipline, not talent, not mood, not circumstance, is what determines the shape of your life. I used to shout to myself, I'm going to change. But nothing really changed until I started whispering, I'm already changing, and proving it in those quiet, invisible choices, like not reaching for my phone, like taking one full breath before beginning anything, like showing up on time for my own life. And here's the part many people miss. The transformation you seek doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't feel revolutionary. It feels like repetition. It feels like another ordinary morning where you do the small thing again, and again, and again. But one day you'll look back and realize the extraordinary life you've created wasn't born from one grand moment. It was forged in the stillness of hundreds of mornings when you chose to rise. Not dramatically, but deliberately. Not because you had to, because you decided you were worth it. There will be resistance. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There will be mornings when the alarm feels cruel, when your bed whispers all the right excuses, when your mind, cunning and clever, says, you need rest, even when you know what you really need is responsibility. Resistance won't always shout. Sometimes it will come wearing the mask of kindness, offering reasonable arguments. You were up late. Nothing urgent today. 10 more minutes won't hurt. And that's why the true battle of morning isn't fought in your body, it's fought in your mind. If you pause to argue, you've already lost. Resistance thrives in negotiation. You overcome it not with logic, but with movement. When the alarm rings, don't wait. Sit up. Put your feet on the floor. Take one breath, then walk. No hesitation. That's how you win the first moment. And that moment, more than any other, defines the day ahead. I've failed at this more times than I can count. I've hit snooze. I've broken promises to myself. I've planned and then bailed. And every time I didn't just lose a morning, I lost a little piece of belief in myself. Because each broken commitment, no matter how small, chips away at the foundation of trust. And when trust erodes, self-respect follows. But the beautiful thing is, you can always rebuild. You can start again tomorrow. You can stop trying to impress anyone, not even yourself, and just focus on winning the first 30 seconds. Don't worry about what comes next. Just stand up. Just breathe. Just walk into the light of the morning with your eyes open and your heart steady. Resistance never leaves. It just changes shape. Sometimes it looks like fatigue. Sometimes it's dressed as busyness. Sometimes it pretends to be noble, like helping others before you've even helped yourself. But its purpose is always the same, to pull you away from what you truly want. And the only cure is discipline. Not rigid, joyless discipline, but the kind that comes from love. The kind that says, I know this is hard, but I also know I'm capable. The kind that respects the self more than the temporary comfort. The kind that leads with action, knowing motivation will catch up later. Because that's the truth. You don't need motivation to begin. You begin, and motivation follows. So if you've been waiting for the right moment to start, stop waiting. There's no perfect day, no golden sunrise that will transform you unless you decide to meet it. Begin tomorrow. Wake a little earlier. Skip the phone. Sit with yourself. Breathe. Listen. Let the old version of you, the one who delays, avoids, doubts, begin to fade. Not because you forced it, but because you replaced it. With presence, with awareness, with courage. Because every time you choose action over excuse, you reclaim your life. And slowly you begin to see that this shift is not just about your mornings, it's about who you are becoming. Someone who leads instead of drifts. Someone who chooses instead of reacts. Someone who lives with direction, not default. You don't need to do everything right. You just need to begin. One small ritual, one moment of stillness, one act that reflects the person you are committed to becoming. Maybe it's writing a single line. Maybe it's standing at the window and breathing deeply. Maybe it's walking without headphones and listening to the morning. Whatever it is, let it be true. Let it be consistent. Let it be enough. Because that, more than any external accomplishment, is the root of success. Showing up for yourself day after day, not out of fear, but out of reverence for the life you know you're meant to live. And remember, you don't need a special day to change your life. That special day is tomorrow. That special moment is the morning. And the one who can change it all, the only one, is you.